Chapter 1705 City Under Siege. Chapter 1705 City Under Siege. The ancient Shin clan in the City of the Gods in the Central Emperor Realm was known as one of the top 3 forces in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. It was said that there were 3 top figures in the Shin clan. Among them, 2 of them guarded the clan itself. One of them was the current patriarch of the clan, and the other was a clan elder, Shinji, who had attacked the Heavenly Mandate Academy. However, this force that stood at the peak of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path had encountered a disaster not long ago. The Sky River Great Elder had slaughtered them, killing many cultivators in the City of the Gods, then attacking the Shin clan itself where he had buried many more. Only when the Patriarch and the Elder had acted was he wounded and driven away. No one had thought that the ancient Sky River Great Elder would one day become a demon. If they could have imagined that, they would not have left him alive. At that moment in the Divine Hall of the Shin clan, a young woman was floating helplessly in the air in the midst of a brilliant matrix like a rootless plant. She looked weak and pitiful. She was covered by countless rays of divine light that seemed like they wanted to cut into her. Beams of terrible light flowed off of her. Almost all the great figures of the Shin clan stood around her, including the current patriarch. And these powerful people had used their strength against this woman. Behind the matrix was another prison in the air with 3 people in it, imprisoned by interlocking bars of spatial light. They watched the scene before them with red eyes, as if they were about to go mad. But they had no power. They could only watch what was happening. These 3 were Qi Shengang, Yan Yuan, and Nanzhai. As for the floating woman, it was naturally Fei Shue. These days, the Shin clan was constantly healing Qi Shengang, trying to recover his erased memories in order to find Fei Shue. However, before he had recovered his memories, they had sent people out to find her, and they had seen her and Yan Yuan. They had also gotten some thoughts from Qi Shengang from time to time. Despite this, he had never thought that the Shin clan would get him. At this time, he cursed himself for his powerlessness. He could not protect his own daughter. Yan Yuan and Nanzhai also looked quite bitter. Their red eyes were filled with endless guilt. Before their teacher had left, he had asked them to protect Fei Shue, but they had not. Now, seeing her current situation, they felt like knives were piercing their hearts. "There is no way to refine it," said one of the Shin clan cultivators to his elder, ignoring the prisoner's mood. "It's already inside her." "Of course there is no way," said Shinji. The patriarch of the Shin clan was silent for a while. "We will have to take it out of her by force," said another elder, his voice cold. The patriarch of the Shin clan naturally knew what that meant. They would have to cut open this woman in front of them. If it had been anyone else, they already would have done so. But what could not be denied was that the woman before them was related to him. Her grandmother was his own daughter. "Elder, we need the divine item," said someone. The patriarch thought of the battle that had happened before. The Sky River Great Elder had fought his way into the Shin clan all by himself, staining the land with blood. If the Sky River Great Elder had only broken through to the next level and had not done all the other things, he would be no match for the patriarch. But he had activated the power of the divine item and become terrifyingly powerful. This made the Shin clan want divine items to bring back to their clan even more. Boom! A dull roar rang out in the distance. Everyone in the Shin clan could feel a terrifying shaking. The cultivators all frowned. More dull roars rang out. They knew where they were coming from. The Sky River Great Elder had gone crazy and used his body to feed the Great Path. He had turned from a man into a demon. She was crazy as well as she wildly attacked the matrix that held her, trying to break free. If it wasn't for how strong the giant matrix was, she would have broken it. "All right," said the patriarch. He had finally made his decision. Hearing his words, Fei Shue seemed to understand her fate as she floated there powerlessly. Tears flowed from her eyes. She was not afraid of death, it was just that this was not how she wanted to die. No one would want to leave the world in such a casual fashion. And she knew that if the Shin clan killed her, her father, brother Yan Yuan, and brother Nanzhai would all die as well. Her heart hurt to think of it. As the tears fell, a figure appeared in her mind. He healed her eyes, allowing her to see light again and letting her body accept the ominous thing, within her so that it became part of her flesh. After he had left the Crimson Dragon realm, she had often wondered when she would see him again. She had never thought they'd be parted forever. "Elder," came a voice from outside. The patriarch frowned and said, "Didn't I tell you not to disturb us?" The person outside felt his heart tremble, but he said, "Elder, several top figures have suddenly descended upon the city of the gods." The patriarch of the Shun clan frowned. First, it had been the Sky River Great Elder. Now who was coming to make trouble? "Who is it?" he asked coldly. "The Shao clan, the Yuanyang clan, and another one from the Ziwei realm, the Dou tribe," said the man outside, trembling. "3 people from these 3 great powers have come. Their clan leaders have come personally." The patriarch of the Shun clan's expression finally changed. And he was not the only one. All of the great figures of the Shun clan looked shocked. If they had been outside, they would have sensed this, but they were busy with Feishue. The elders of 3 powerful forces had come. What did this mean? The Sky River Great Elder's attack had shaken the Shun clan. Had these people come to kick them while they were down? Although these were the top forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm, in normal times, they would not even be worthy of the Shun clan's attention. Each of them only had 1 top-level figure, and the Shun clan had 3. Even if one of them was gone, he and Shinji could still protect them. Who in the vast world would dare disturb them? But today was different. The affair with the Sky River Great Elder was not yet finished, and the Shun clan had experienced great turmoil. Now, 3 great figures had come here together. If they had come to attack, the Shun clan could not stop them. Looking away from Feishue, the patriarch said coldly, "We will leave this place first." On saying so, he turned and walked out of the hall. A dark look came over the faces of the cultivators of the Shun clan as they followed him out. On the steps to the hall, the patriarch looked off into the distance. His thoughts swept out, spreading far away in an instant. Soon, he a figure standing on top of a building with his hair dancing in the wind. He recognized him. It was Shao Dingtian of the Shao clan. It was said that he had not appeared in the outside world for many years. The patriarch's thoughts continued to sweep out until he saw 2 more people. One of them was carefree and unrestrained, sitting there peacefully, while the other was eating and drinking in a pavilion. This one had a husky figure. Everyone in the pavilion where he was eating had evacuated, and no one dared come near. His aura was too frightening. It seemed as if it would be impossible to breathe if one sat beside him. The 3 of them were all in different places in the city of the gods. They had not appeared together, and they were not coming towards the Shun clan. However, since they had all appeared at the same time, no one would think that was a coincidence. This was the homeland of the Shun clan. How stupid would one have to be to think that it was an accident that 3 great figures had appeared there at the same time? There was a cold look on the patriarch of the Shun clan's face. These 3 top figures would not normally cooperate. There was only one reason for them to make common cause. Their descendants were all very close to Yi Futian of the Heavenly Mandate realm. All of this was because of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They dared attack the Shun clan because of that academy. At that moment, he seemed to sense something. He looked through endless space, off into the distance. There, a terrifying aura seemed to be approaching, getting closer and closer. The city of the gods was one of the greatest cities in the Central Emperor realm. Now, a mighty aura was spreading through the sky above the city. It was the aura of a mighty army that was traveling through the air. Countless people looked up at it. It was made up of Renwangs. A low roar rang out from the mouths of terrifying dragons. The sun was blotted out as kunpangs flapped their wings. Overpowering elephants charged through the clouds. An army of Renwangs rode on the backs of the dragons, elephants, and kunpangs. They were descending upon the city of the gods. There were 2 people at their head, one old, one young. The old one had an incredible aura, and the young one was heroic and had hair as white as snow. The forces of the Heavenly Mandate realm. The people of the City of Gods soon guessed who they were. The Heavenly Mandate Academy had been founded not long ago, shaking the 9 realms. It was said that a cultivator of the Shun clan had gone there in force seeking someone. The Heavenly Mandate Academy had refused him, after which Shinji had attacked the academy. Why had the academy come here now? First, it had been the Sky River Great Elder, who had turned into a demon. Now it was the army of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Moreover, it seemed like 3 powerful figures had come here before them. When had such a powerful storm ever befallen the city of the gods? When had the Shun clan ever been in this much trouble? "This is too much," said someone, looking up at the army in the sky and trembling. The people involuntarily followed the army towards the Shun clan. Of course, only Renhuang-level people dared follow them closely. In the pavilion, the mighty and powerful figure put down his cup and stood up. He looked out towards the Shun clan, and an oppressive aura swept out all around him. Countless people looked at him. He stood there in the pavilion like a god of war, facing the Shun clan. The elder of the Yuanyang clan and the Xiao Dingtian of the Xiao clan let their auras spread out as well. They stood atop buildings, and as they let their auras out, the people in the area around them began to tremble. These were top-level people. 3 powerful auras were descending upon the Shun clan at once. And at the same time, a powerful army had appeared as well. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1706 Greetings to the Master. Chapter 1706 Greetings to the Master. The Shun clan was vast and boundless. Its interior was akin to an ancient city, with an unknown number of cultivators. At this time, many figures levitated into the sky from the Shun clan. They focused on the outer sky, at the great army that had descended. There were still those who had no qualms about attacking the Shun clan. Last time it was the Sky River Great Elder, and this time, it was the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Lord Taishian levitated into the sky alone, heading toward the direction of Shun clan. He took a step into the void. Then, loud sounds were heard, and buildings inside the Shun clan collapsed and shattered. A terrible storm of sword chi blew through the Shun clan, and some from the Shun clan perished immediately under the sword. Shinji's body rose into the air. He opened his divine eyes, and the divine light reaching toward Lord Taishian. He said in a chilling tone, "Lord Taishian, do you know what you are doing?" Naturally, Lord Taishian responded, "When Shun clan slaughtered countless cultivators in the attack of Tianhe realm, have you ever thought that the Sky River Great Elder would one day come to avenge them? Likewise, when you forced your way into the Heavenly Mandate Academy, you never expected that one day the Heavenly Mandate Academy would dare to come to the Shun clan. Everything that was done by the Shun clan must be repaid." Lord Taishian stepped out again, and the sword will set off a terrifying storm, as many ancient temples of the Shun clan were flattened by the sword chi, just like what Shinji did to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. How could the Shun clan be so self-assured, thinking that the Heavenly Mandate Academy would not fight back? Just because the Shun clan was strong and powerful, Shinji was bold enough to be so aggressive as to uproot the newly established Heavenly Mandate Academy. However, at this moment, Lord Taishian was telling him that whatever Shun clan dared to do, they would also. The clan lord of Shun clan was still standing below, as his divine spirit swept toward the top figures in the other 3 directions. The 3 of them were at different locations outside the Shun clan and observing from afar. It was as if they were not here to fight, but merely to observe. "How about you guys?" asked the clan lord of Shun clan. He could hardly believe that the 3 top peak forces would also dare to go to war with them. If they started a war, both sides would suffer. Those who were at the pinnacle of power perhaps would not perish, but their young ones would most certainly be decimated. Who could afford to pay such a price? It didn't seem that they were at the point where they need to all perish together. Xiao Muyu, the goddess of Xiao clan, and some of our youngsters had entered the Heavenly Mandate Academy to cultivate. When we heard that the Shun clan had come in force and slaughtered indiscriminately, completely ignoring their existence, our youngsters were quite incensed and demand an explanation. "That's why we are here today," said Xiao Dingtian, the clan lord of the Xiao clan. His tone was extremely calm, without any emotion, as if he was just stating a casual matter. Clearly, they would not perish together, nor do they really wish a full-blown war. It was a price that no one could afford. But it was true that the Shun clan was the instigator in this conflict, and it was hard for all the principalities here to act without prejudice. After all, who could overlook such blatant offense? By coincidence, Sky River Great Elder invaded the Shen clan, with Lord Taishen and Yi Futian following closely behind. Under such circumstances, they had no choice but to come along. Since the Shen clan thought that they didn't dare to go to war, they wanted to see if the Shen clan dared to start a war all by themselves. And now they were inside the Shen clan. In this world, no one lacked courage, especially those who had cultivated to the level that they were in. By daring to come here with prominent figures of all top forces, Yi Futian displayed fearless courage. Lord Taishen and Yi Futian were right. If this humiliation was tolerated, then the newly established Heavenly Mandate Academy would never be able to stand up in the Heavenly Mandate realm. So here they were. The young ones couldn't let go such slight, so us old ones had to come over and keep an eye on them. Or else, it may be like last time in the Heavenly Mandate Academy, getting killed off by Chief Elder Shinji. The clan lord of Yuanyang clan piped up. His tone, though nonchalant, was clearly full of strong resentment. Today, all three great cultivators came to protect their young. They stood here and watched to see whether or not the Shen clan would dare to make a move. If the Shen clan did make a move, then they would have no choice but to oblige. The wager for today's gamble between both sides was the entire Shen clan. If the Shen clan dared to play the game, it could possibly be annihilated. 4 mighty figures plus the top forces from Heavenly Mandate Realm. No one had any doubts that they could very well destroy everyone except the 2 major figures of the Shen clan. Of course, this was not a step anyone wished to take. However, it would be impossible to spare the 2 major figures of the Shen clan, so this was a poison pill they had to take. Once, Shinji had wagered that the Heavenly Mandate Academy would not retaliate. Today they bet that Shen clan dared not make a move, which was also a strong response to the Shen clan. A divine dragon was moving forward, with Yi Futian standing on top of it. Behind him, there were some who traveled with him, and they were very young. Every one of them was the top figure of their generation. On both sides, people from the top forces in the Heavenly Mandate Realm were standing guard for them. "Bring them," Yi Futian said. A divine dragon came forward, and several men were clasped within its sharp claws. In one direction within Shen clan, Shen Hao was there. Behind him, Luo Yang paled. Seeing the situation right now, he knew that everything had gone wrong. He had thought that facing the powerful Shen clan, the Heavenly Mandate Academy lacked the power to fight back and would not risk any sudden moves. But the Heavenly Mandate Academy had unleashed swiftly upon the Shen clan. "Luo Yang," Yi Futian called to him, but Luo Yang stood there without moving. "Bastard." Luo Yang's father was imprisoned by the sharp claws of the divine dragon, and his eyes were bloody red. He definitely did not expect that Luo Yang to cause such a grievous disaster in the upper worlds. He participated in this kind of power play intending to benefit from it, but he didn't know he was, in fact, playing with fire. "Father, I'm sorry." Luo Yang's face was pale, but he couldn't die now. Shen Hao had already agreed to take him in cultivation. If he stepped out now, everything would be over. If he could stay alive, then there was still hope. Yi Futian stared coldly at Luo Yang in the distance. Did he think he could survive this? The divine dragon continued moving forward. Yi Futian put out his hand, and the spatial will of the way swept out, as a giant hand pressed down through the void. This golden giant hand from the space caught Luo Yang, and slowly lifted him up. "Save me." Luo Yang had a look of terror on his face. But when he looked at the cultivators behind him, no one paid any attention to him. To the Shen clan, Luo Yang was but a nobody. No one cared about whether he lived or died. Luo Yang saw those indifferent eyes looking at him, and he felt cold all over. The giant palm imprisoned him and moved him in front of Yi Futian. The flames descended, engulfing Luo Yang's body. "Let me die quickly." Luo Yang's face was distorted, he looked terribly wretched. Yi Futian stared at him indifferently, ignoring the miserable howls let out by Luo Yang, who was also well versed in the art of flames. However, under the flames of the way, his body disappeared little by little until there was nothing left but ashes. All the cultivators watched what was happening in front of them, and remarked on its ruthlessness. Luo Yang's family members looked on with bloody red eyes, but who could they blame at this moment? All of this was Luo Yang's own doing. People from Luo clan will never be allowed to leave Crimson Dragon City, or else the entire clan will be eradicated. You may go back now, Yi Futian said. Divine Dragon loosened its claws, and people of the Luo clan left with their lives, but their hearts were cold. They would not be allowed to leave Crimson Dragon City for as long as they were alive, never mind about Crimson Dragon Realm. This was how Yi Futian forbade their clan to even contemplate revenge for generations to come. Crimson Dragon Emperor would be keeping close tabs on them. Luo Yang's death was just an aside. The fact was that not many people here cared much about whether Luo Yang lived or died. But if it weren't for Luo Yang, none of this mess would have happened. It was because of the news that Luo Yang gave to the Shen clan that started the chain of events. Even as Luo Yang was unimportant, Yi Futian had to be killed. He looked in the direction of the Shen clan and said loud and clear, "Yi Futian from the Heavenly Mandate Academy, come to bring back my master Qi Xiangang, senior brother, and Fei Xue." This voice rolled like thunder, resounding through heaven and earth, heard throughout the entire Shen clan. His master Qi Xiangang had been trapped for many days. Now the senior brother and Fei Xue had also been brought here by the Shen clan. Today, he came to bring them home. Sky River Great Elder was not successful, so he could not fail today. In the distance, the clan lord of the Shen clan looked at Yi Futian from afar. This was the first time he saw this white-haired young man. Before this, he had only heard people below talking about him a few times. Qi Shuanggong's own talent was not spectacular. Back then, the Shen clan opposed his marriage to Nongyue, causing a series of bad events. No one could anticipate that Qi Shuanggong's disciple was so outstanding. He knew clearly that today's siege on Shen clan by the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the three top figures was because of this disciple of his. To be able to do all of this, even he, as one of the pinnacle figures of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, had to admit that it was truly amazing. Shen clan stood on the top of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, and had never been so passive and overwhelmed by an opponent like they were today. No wonder he was able to create the Heavenly Mandate Academy by himself. It seemed that they had underestimated him. "Bring Qi Xiangang and the other two," the clan lord said. Someone stepped into the temple, and soon, three figures emerged. It was Qi Xiangang, Yan Yuan, and Nanzhai. Fei Xue was not one of them. Obviously, to the Shen clan, different values were placed on Fei Xue, Qi Xiangang, and the others. Qi Xiangang, Yan Yuan, and Nanzhai looked into the distance and saw the white-haired man who came on the Divine Dragon. Qi Xiangang renounced his relationship with Yi Futian years ago and suffered alone, precisely because he wished to spare Yi Futian. He never thought that there would be a day when Yi Futian would lead an army to the Shen clan and came for him. Unfit disciple Yi Futian now come to bring the master home. Looking at the frail Qi Xiangang at this moment, Yi Futian felt a deep sorrow. He was a most incompetent disciple. Once, he had watched his master being taken away by the Shen clan, while he didn't dare to make their relationships known. After such a long time, he was finally here. Fortunately, the master was still safe and sound. Dou Zhao from the Dou clan in Ziwei realm greets the master and two senior brothers. At this time, Dou Zhao also took a step forward, bowing in the direction where Qi Xiangang was. This was the first time he met his master since Yi Futian accepted him as his junior brother, and he had to pay his respect. Qi Xiangang was taken aback, unaware since when was Dou Zhao a disciple of his? Long Chen from the Dragon Gods in Heavenly Mandate Realm, greetings to the Grandmaster. June from the Sky Demon Court in Heavenly Mandate Realm, greetings to the Grandmaster. Gao Huang from the 10,000 Divine Mountain in Heavenly Mandate Realm Mountain, greetings to the Grandmaster. Xiao Muyu from the Xiao clan in the Imperial Realm, greetings to the Grandmaster. Many emerged, saluting Qi Xiangang in the distance. At this moment, Qi Xiangang was a little confused. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1707 The Gods Have Spoken. Chapter 1707 The Gods Have Spoken. The clan lord of the Shen clan showed a look of surprise. Were all these people Qi Shuanggong's disciples? Every one of them represented a mighty principality to be reckoned with. What a genius was this white-haired disciple of Qi Shuanggong's. Master, my fellow junior brothers and Miu have cultivated in the deed of thorough comprehension before breaking through the realm, as it was greatly helpful to prove the Renhuang realm. I taught them on behalf of the master, so they are now master's disciples, Yi Futian said, speaking loudly. My junior brothers and I have come to take the master home. Qi Xiangang was silent. He knew this was Yi Futian's design to help set him free, accepting disciples on his behalf, all for today's showdown. How are you planning on bringing them home? The clan lord of the Shen clan spoke from the sky. Their rival had come in an alliance so that the Shen clan would not dare to act rashly. However, would these people really dare to start a war with the Shen clan? Were they not afraid of angering the Shen clan and causing mutual destruction? Put it bluntly, in this game, though they were in a passive position, it was still the resolve on both sides that were tested. Except this time, they did not have the upper hand. Yi Futian glanced into the distance. The massive body of the divine dragon moved forward, drove into the sky above the Shen clan. All his people were standing with him on both sides. Behind him, the great army moved forward, along with him. In the void, as well as the city of the gods, the four great figures shrouded the Shen clan with their spiritual will. It was as if the war of mutual destruction could explode at any moment. I came here today with no plan on retreating. If I can't get out of here alive, I will take down the entire Shen clan to be buried with me, or I will take my people back, Yi Futian replied. The divine dragon continued moving forward, not fast, but with an extremely firm attitude. There was no mistaking the great determination in his calm voice. No one in the Shen clan doubted his determination. The moment Yi Futian stepped into the Shen clan, he risked death at any moment, because he was facing the entire Shen clan plus two major figures. But still, he came with a great army. Now that they were here, clearly he had prepared for all eventualities. They either fight and everyone dies, or the Shen clan releases their people to them. There was no third option. Inside the Shen clan, many cultivators rose into the sky, and within the vast Shen clan, a terrifying aura of Renhuang swept toward that great army. Even the cultivators of the Shen clan could felt great pressure at this moment. This army was not just a single principality but was a conglomeration of all the elite powers from the heavenly mandate realm. But the fact was that as long as it had less Renhuang at the peak level, then the heavenly mandate realm was still unlikely to compete against the Shen clan. This was also the reason why Shenji dared to move against the heavenly mandate academy with aggression. However, today, Yi Futian only had 4 people at the peak level on his side. I'll give you a chance. At this time, the clan lord of the Shen clan outside the temple said to Yi Futian and the others, since you want to take your master back, I will allow it. Anyone who is related to Qi Xiangang, as long as someone could get to them, I will let you take that person with you. Only the lower Renhuang of the Shen clan will defend. He could see that those who called Qi Xiangang master were all of the lower Renhuang realm. The realm of Renhuang was divided into 9 order of the divine wheel, but, in fact, there were only 3 major realms. Therefore, it was appropriate that he would send the lower Renhuang to battle. But even so, how many cultivators did Shen clan have? Many of them were at the top level of lower Renhuang, so they were still at a great advantage. This was his compromise to give the other a way out. It was meaningless to keep Qi Xiangang and the others any longer, but today's battle was about the dignity of the Shen clan. He couldn't just let them go. But it seemed difficult to not let them go either. Yi Futian would not give up until he got what he came for. You feel it is justified for the few of them to fight against the entire lower Renhuang of the Shen clan? Said Xiao Dingtian in the distance. A bit of sarcasm could be detected in his indifferent tone. How brave was the Shen clan? Yi Futian knew that the attitude of the Shen clan was not as aggressive as they were before with the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They did not dare to gamble. If the two sides clashed, the Shen clan would definitely be the first one to be destroyed, because this fight was on their territory. He smiled sarcastically while looking at the clan lord of the Shun clan from afar and said, "Although I will take my people home no matter what, I will take this opportunity to expose just how easily the Shun clan can be crushed. The profound heritage that you are so proud of is, in fact, nothing and won't stand up to our strike." As his voice faded, he stepped forward and dismounted the divine dragon. Next to him, Yu Sheng, Yaya, the swordmaster of Lihan, Gu Donglu, Xiaomuyu, and other powerful cultivators stepped out at the same time, standing shoulder to shoulder with Yi Futian in the sky. Every single one of them was outstanding in their own way. This battle would be the first battle where all of Qi Shuanggong's disciples fight together. After having proved the way, in this first battle, we will trample the Shun clan Renhuang, Yi Futian said, and stepped forward. Dou Zhao, descendant of the fighting god, will overpower the Shun clan today. Dou Zhao let out a howl, feeling inexplicably emotional as blood boiled inside of him. Multiple marks of the fighting god appeared around his brow chakra. In an instant, his aura increased wildly by leaps and bounds. A giant towering shadow of the fighting god appeared, and the light of the divine will swept out. He clenched his fists as his hulking torso merged into the shadow of the fighting god. As soon as he took the first step, endless divine light penetrated his body. Its bright dazzle was incomparable. Will of the fighting god opened seven folds. With a loud roar, the fighting god walked across the sky, and when he saw the Shun clan cultivators ahead, he raised a fist and punched through the void. The aura of that Shun clan Renhuang swept out, but before he was fully ready, he saw Dou Zhao's fist blasting through the air toward him. A golden divine light pierced through the space, and an explosive sound was heard. That Renhuang from the Shun clan looked down at his own chest and abdomen. He saw that a gaping hole in the shape of a fist there, where it had punched through. This sudden and dominant display shook many to their core. Dou Zhao of the Dou clan, with his perfect divine wheel, had just executed a Renhuang of the Shun clan, completely without mercy. Dou Zhao didn't care so much about that. This was sanctioned by the clan lord of the Shun clan, so he didn't need to hold back. He had permission to kill. Perfect divine wheel, the cultivators of the Shun clan secretly remarked. Dou Zhao of the Dou clan in the Ziwei realm had cast the perfect divine wheel. The rest of the lower Renhuang of the Shun clan finally came to and released an explosively tyrannical breath, not giving their opponent another chance to attack them at will. A mighty destructive force swept out. The cultivators of the Shun clan cultivators were many. Could these few really think that they could shake every one of the lower Renhuang of the Shun clan? Somewhere else at this time, a Shun clan cultivator reached forward, and suddenly an incomparably radiant golden pattern bloomed, rotating between heaven and earth as the pattern was getting larger and larger. In front of the pattern, a golden spatial sword appeared. Hundreds and thousands of divine swords rotated, and a rain of golden swords in the sky slew toward Yi Futian and the others. The whistling will of the great path was tearing up everything. At this moment, the earth boomed in a roar, and an overbearing dark figure strode forward and walked directly into the sword rain. His hulking and dominant torso moved under the sword will, and the sword rain that was full of terrifying power to slaughter was unable to shake him. The massive dark figure moved its arms backward, clenched the fists, and then smashed them forward, blasting on the pattern that contained hundreds and thousands of divine swords. "You asked for it." That Renhuang spun his hands, then slapped them forward, as countless divine swords penetrated the void, eradicating everything in front of him. Yu Sheng answered with a blast of his fists and created an absolute space in the falling sword rain. All the swords had to detour around it, or they would be pulverized and shattered. Boom! When the fists landed, the pattern was punched through, and with it, the falling sword rain shattered. The fists then blasted on the opponent's head, and as it exploded, its soul and spirit also scattered. There were several other Renhuangs standing high above the sky together. Their divine eyes opened at their brow chakra and swept down at the few people beneath. As the divine light fell, the divine eyes intruded the others' consciousness. However, several figures levitated into the air at the same time. Xiao Mu's divine wheel exploded forth, and it was equally perfect as the others. Her beautiful eyes shot toward the others, as a yin-yang image of life and death appeared in her eyes. Yaya summoned up the sword matrix of the void, and as she stood upon it, that massive sword matrix was the divine wheel which she had cast. But the sword matrix of the void bloomed brilliantly, and a sword light engulfed the sky, slaughtered a Renhuang in its wake. June and Long Chen acted at the same time. While June morphed into the golden raven, the divine solar light shot out and went through the opponent's eyes, so that even the flames now appeared in those divine eyes. He spread his wings as the divine solar light traversed the void. Not to be outdone, Long Chen raised his hands, and a purple blood storm appeared. Standing high above in the sky, Gu Donglu unleashed the divine picture of heavenly mandate, which summoned the gods and demons of all heavens. In a blink of an eye, every Renhuang from the Shen clan who had made their moves fell one by one. By contrast, perfect divine wheels bloomed one after another. The sky where they were at was already submerged by a glowing light, and the vision of heaven and earth attracted endless divine light. All of them were perfect. Cultivators of the Shen clan watched in complete horror. How could this be possible? All of them were perfect, without exception. Even the clan lord of the Shen clan and the great elder Shinji were mesmerized by what they saw. Their eyes fixed on the gorgeous display in front of them, and their hearts were troubled. In this generation, besides them, were there really so many geniuses who had cast the perfect divine wheel in the 9 realms? This was almost like something from a dream. How could it be? All the Shen clan Renhuang looked on blankly. It was the goal of every cultivator who had proved Renhuang to cast the perfect divine wheel. But in this generation of Shen clan, Shen Hao was the only one who had achieved it. However, at this moment, there was a whole group of cultivators that had apparently done it. The battlefield that had just exploded seemed to be quieted again. But in the hearts of the Shen clan cultivators, the silence was especially terrifying. They slowly turned their gazes at the white-haired man in the crowd. At this time, he walked forward in the void, facing countless stares. How did you do it? The clan lord of the Shen clan looked at Yi Futian, and intuition told him that this shocking reality had everything to do with Yi Futian. Yi Futian looked at him across the air, continued to move forward, and said slowly, "I have witnessed the awakening of the great emperor, which resonated with me. The great emperor had given me his inheritance, and I have felt the calling of the gods and listened to their will. And the gods had spoken that the Shen clan should be eradicated. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters." Chapter 1708 Opportunity. Chapter 1708 Opportunity. The deities had decreed that the Shen clan had to be eliminated. Right now, Yi Futian's white hair fluttered in the wind. Brilliant divine light appeared on his body. Divine signs appeared and reverberated with the great path. This scene caused other people to hallucinate. It was as though he was truly inheriting the will of the deities. Many people were familiar with this saying. Yi Futian had also said such words before in the god's relic when the other cultivators questioned him. It was just that back then, many people believed that he was joking and spouting nonsense. However, the halo over Yi Futian's body was glowing brighter and brighter. Was that truly a joke? He witnessed the awakening of the great emperor and heard the will of the deities. Right now, many people could not help but believe that what Yi Futian had said was true. In the god's relic, he had witnessed the awakening of the great emperor and received the teachings of the great emperor. Hence, he had been changing rapidly. Even the people around him were forging flawless divine wheels. Shen clan had always wanted to obtain divine items. There might be such divine items or the teachings of the great emperor on Yi Futian. Shen Hao also looked at Yi Futian. He remembered the dazzling divine light that radiated at the last moment in the heavenly palace in the god's relic back then. The light was blinding and caused the crowd to be unable to open their eyes. They could not even release their will. At that time, had Yi Futian received the teachings of the great emperor? Did Yi Futian turn out to be the biggest winner of the god's relic? As for Yi Futian's last sentence, it was completely ignored by Shen clan. The deities did not know Shen clan and would not concern themselves with Shen clan. Shin clan had to be eliminated, was just the arrogant nonsense spouted by Yi Futian. If Shin clan was eliminated, Yi Futian, the giant figures, as well as all the members at lower planes, would be buried here. However, the cultivators with flawless divine wheels still gave the cultivators of Shin clan a huge sense of astonishment. They roughly understood why the three top forces of Shao clan, Yuanyang clan, as well as Dou tribe had come over. It might be that they wanted to rely on Yi Futian to completely reshuffle the forces in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. That way, they could completely surpass some forces that they could not surpass in the past, such as their Shin clan. Today their battle with Shin clan would be a very significant battle for them. Coincidentally, Sky River Great Elder, who had slaughtered his way into Shin clan, had provided them with an opportunity. It was as though that was how things were playing out to be. So, you all want to step over Shin clan and rise in rank? The major figures of Shin clan thought to themselves. Before they attacked Heavenly Mandate Academy, they had never imagined that these people would dare try to step over their Shin clan to ascend. They did not say anything. It was not easy to reach the Renhuang Plain. The Renhuangs of Shin clan might have underestimated their opponents before this. However, right now, seeing that all of them were possessors of flawless divine wheels, how could they not understand that this was going to be a truly vicious battle? When the clan leader ordered the lower-level Renhuangs of Shin clan to hold off these few Renhuangs, many members of Shin clan were full of disdain. In the end, they had paid the price for doing so with their blood. There were a number of Renhuangs who were instantly cut down when they exchanged blows with Heavenly Mandate Academy. The destructive power of the possessors of flawless divine wheels was extremely frightening. Right now, the Renhuangs who had advanced alone began to retreat. The Renhuangs in the distance also advanced forward to regroup with them. In a short while, the group of Renhuangs stood before the crowd. Might of Renhuang instantly burst forth from their bodies. The divine Weas in their bodies burst forth with a brilliant glow. Even though their individual divine wheels were all different, the same scene played out on their glabellas. They all opened their divine eyes. This was the talent of their Shin clan. In the sky above, brilliant divine light suddenly shone. The power of the great path in the world actually resonated with their divine eyes. Yi Futian's group felt an unparalleled majestic pressure of the great path pressing down on them. They stopped in their tracks as the terrifying force stood before them. At that moment, there were many Renhuangs of Shin clan joining forces, forming a large formation in this part of the space. It was as though the heavens were separated. Their movements seemed to have been slowed down. There was a frightening spatial great path flow that was everywhere. Around Yi Futian's group, illusions of deities appeared. When the divine eyes of Shin clan gazed at Yi Futian's group, they clearly felt as though they were being brought into an independent spatial world. In that world, deities appeared in the sky above as though they had been summoned. As one of the top clans in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, the Renhuangs of Shin clan naturally were not pushovers. Even against a group of possessors of flawless divine wheels, they still possessed an advantage in terms of plane and numbers. Yi Futian naturally also sensed the majestic force. When the cultivators of Shin clan released the same ability, it created a resonance. It was as though they had become the masters of this part of the world and completely controlled this space. In that instant, the cultivators of Shin clan had turned the tables to suppress them. Kill them, an extremely solemn voice ordered. Their opponent had already tried to kill them. The Renhuangs of Shin clan naturally would not be merciful. Regardless of the consequences, since their opponents dared to take them on, their Shin clan would also do the same. His order had just been issued when endless divine light directly ripped the space apart. This was Shin clan's grand massacre technique, Tianshin Cleave. All of their opponents would be buried under this technique. Rumble. The auras of Yi Futian's group frenziedly exploded outwards. Their flawless divine wheels of the Great Path formed an independent space of the Great Path around them, blocking the Tianshin Cleave technique. At the same time, they also felt a soul-cleaving power. Yi Futian raised his head. His eyes became very strange. In a loud voice, he asked, "Do you know what flawless divine wheels signify?" Pairs of divine eyes swept towards Yi Futian. At the exact same instance, Yi Futian's eyes also became extremely frightening. His eyes directly penetrated their gazes and imprisoned them in an eye sorcery zone. It means that we have absolute control over Wei. In terms of the Great Path, we have absolute suppression. Yi Futian's figure gradually rose into the sky. He stood at the center of the endless massacre divine light, but the frightening divine light went around his body when it came in contact with it. Lower-level Renhuangs, before me, you are unqualified to release the might of your Wei. As Yi Futian spoke, his body kept floating upwards. He stood unaffected amidst the endless massacre of divine light. At the same time, around his body, streaks of divine light of the Great Path extended outwards. They directly penetrated the opponent's space of the Great Path, breaking through the layers of protection and enveloping the endless space. Many people seem to hear the sound of a guqin of the Great Path. The streaks of divine light of the Great Path became guqin strings of the Great Path. Sword will also emanated from them. Inside Yi Futian's body, unparalleled divine light exploded from his guqin divine wheel. Even the illusions of the deities in the sky above could not suppress him. Yi Futian pointed a finger at the heavens. He drew his finger across the sky, and divine swords slashed across the sky. Shatter! A crisp voice sounded everywhere. As this word was uttered, the crowd sensed the Great Path shattering. The spatial Great Path that suppressed this part of the world was destroyed by sword will in that instance. Beams of light from the divine swords ripped apart the heavens. In the end, they formed a stream of swords that shot directly over in the direction of the cultivators of Shen clan. With a huge rumble, divine light exploded, and the formation of the Renhuangs of Shen clan instantly collapsed. The heavens shook. In the instant that their formation collapsed, the crowd saw two silhouettes appear at the same time. They seemed to be intrinsically linked. These two silhouettes were both overbearing and were full of endless power. One of them had illusions of demons behind him, while the other had the illusion of the fighting god behind him. At that moment, the two war god-level figures seemed to be astonishingly in sync. They sent out a punch towards the Renhuangs at the same time. There was another intense vibration. A loud rumble could be heard in the sky. It was as though those two punches had shattered the space. As the punches traversed the space, countless afterimages that contained unparalleled power also penetrated the space. The figures of the Renhuangs of Shen clan were sent flying outwards at the same time. Cracks appeared on some of their divine wheels. Some of them coughed up blood, while others had ruptured internal organs. In an instant, the attack had negated the terrifying formation that was set up by many Renhuangs from Shen clan. The cultivators in the sky could all see this battle. Their hearts began to waver. Even the top figures of Shao clan, Yuanyang clan as well as Dou tribe could not keep calm. This was the perfection that cultivators sought. Although they had broken through to the shackles of their planes, one reality was clearly being displayed before them. Those who had flawed great paths could not become emperor. They could only be called false emperors. They also knew that true perfection was at the peak of the Renhuang plane. Even those who had broken through the shackles of the Great Path were no match against someone with a 9th-tier divine wheel. This was a flaw that they could never compensate for. Hence, when they knew that Yi Futian had a group of possessors of flawless divine wheels around him, they had decided to come out and stand with Heavenly Mandate Academy. Or rather, they came out to stand with Yi Futian against Shen clan. They also dreamt that one day, their descendants could obtain what they could not achieve. If there were such a day, they would have no regrets. It might be said that it was what the leader of Shen clan had imagined. Them standing against Shen clan today was a fate of circumstance. This battle would most likely be one for the history books. It would cause a huge shift in the hierarchy of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path in the future. They clearly knew that although they were all top forces, in reality, the hierarchy of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path was already set in stone, and it was extremely difficult to ascend. Ascending their ranks required the continuous effort of generations of people and needed the appearance of peerless monstrous figures who did not die in the process of advancing their cultivation. Wishing for change in this hierarchy was too difficult. Yi Futian's appearance might have been an opportunity. An opportunity for a complete reshuffle of the top forces in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. However, they also understood that there would be powerful resistance to such a change. When they were standing here, they had already thought it through. Since such an opportunity had appeared before them, no matter what happened, they would fight for it at all costs. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1709 Battle Between Two. Chapter 1709 Battle Between Two. Amidst the cultivators of Shin Clan, after Yi Futian's three-man team pushed back the Renhuangs, they continued advancing in the direction of the Sacred Hall. Yi Futian's group was not afraid of the top figures of Shin Clan there. They did not fear those figures attacking them. Since they had come here, they had already thought things through clearly. It was either they perished and brought Shin Clan down with them, or they succeeded in rescuing their target. Yi Futian believed that the dominant and powerful Shin Clan would not dare to take such a risk when faced with the true danger of their clan being eradicated. Shin Clan would rather preserve their own lives. Yi Futian's figure accelerated as he advanced. Dou Zhao and Yu Sheng cleared a path in front of him to his left and right. There were no fancy attacks. If they encountered any Renhuangs, they merely attacked them in close quarters directly. Dou Zhao immediately activated the will of the sevenfold fighting god. Based on his battle against Yu Sheng in the god's relic, Dou Zhao was not much weaker than Yu Sheng with his current condition. Hence, the cultivators of Shin Clan merely saw the silhouettes of Renhuangs directly sent flying from their attacks. No one could stand against them. On Yi Futian's left and right, the swords of Yaya and the swordmaster of Lihan also opened a path across the space. High above and behind Yi Futian, Jueshin diagram appeared on Gu Donglio's body. It was as though he had summoned deities and demons. Among Shin Clan, no one at the lower-level Renhuang plane could stand against this assault. The lower-level Renhuangs of Shin Clan in all directions began to retreat. They knew that facing such an attack was almost guaranteed to fail. They had no chance of winning at all. Renhuangs with flawless divine wheels were far more powerful than ordinary Renhuangs. The former could ignore the small difference between planes. Although Yi Futian had only attacked once, he had shattered the formation established by the combined might of the Renhuangs of Shin Clan. It was just as he had said. Before him, lower-level Renhuangs did not stand a chance. Among Shin Clan, there was most likely only one person of the same plane that could do battle against Yi Futian. He was the most powerful monstrous figure of this generation of Shin Clan, who similarly possessed a flawless divine wheel, Shin Hao. Those with first and second-tier divine wheels, stand down, Shin Hao ordered. His body gradually rose into the air. As he stood in midair, behind him were all the cultivators of Shin Clan who had third-tier divine wheels. There weren't many of them, and they were all elite figures. The wars of the cultivation world were never won with sheer numbers. Numbers only claimed an advantage when both sides were more or less equal in terms of plane and combatability. However, before absolute power, having superior numbers was merely sending cultivators off to their deaths. What meaning was there to sending troops who could not even take one hit? Many Renhuangs had downcast expressions. Although they were reluctant, they still descended to the ground and landed among the cultivators of Shin Clan. Right now, the spatial power of the Great Path permeated the sky above the entire Shin Clan. This power separated Shin Clan from the rest. That way, the people below would not be dragged into the ferocity of the battle. Shen Hao stood in midair. Brilliant divine light emanated from his body. Behind him, a group of lower-level Renhuangs with third-tier divine wheels similarly unleashed extremely powerful auras of the Great Path. Endless divine light gathered together. In front of them, a spatial divine wall, that stretched as far as the eye could see, appeared. There seemed to be countless spatial runes shining on the wall as it separated this part of the sky. Bang! Two loud crashes could be heard. Yu Sheng and Dou Zhao directly collided with the spatial divine wall. In that instant, cracks appeared on the dazzling golden divine wall. Soon after, two brilliant blades of light swept out and crashed into the cracks. It was quickly followed by the sound of the space shattering. The divine wall was blown apart into dust. However, Yu Sheng and the others also slowed down and then stopped in their tracks. They looked towards Xin Hao and the other cultivators before them. Dou Zhao seemed somewhat excited. The person before him was Xin Hao, the top figure in this generation of Shen clan. In the entire Central Emperor realm, Shen Hao was definitely considered one of the top figures of this generation. Even among the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, it was still the same. Battle intent lingered on Dou Zhao's body. He wanted to charge forward and battle it out with Shen Hao. This top figure cultivated by Shen clan would certainly be extremely powerful. Nevertheless, Dou Zhao did not mind. Even if he lost, wasn't there still Yi Futian and Yu Xing? Just thinking about this made Dou Zhao somewhat unable to hold himself back. His figure flashed past and traversed the space. He directly charged in Shen Hao's direction. The cultivators of Dou tribe were born with a love for combat. Dou Zhao had inherited the bloodline of the fighting god. The desire for battle flowed within the blood in his veins. How could he let such an opportunity slip past him? Rumble. As he advanced, his entire person became that of a war god. The will of the sevenfold fighting god was completely unleashed. His power burst out to its limit. The entire sky seemed to be crushed by his will. Yi Futian did not stop Dou Zhao when he saw him charging forward. He naturally knew that Dou Zhao loved to fight. With Dou Zhao's ability, even if Shen Hao was extremely powerful, it would be impossible for him to instantly kill Dou Zhao. Even Yi Futian and Yu Sheng could not do so. Dou Zhao's resistance to take hits was also very high. His defense was astonishing. Shen Hao's divine eyes looked towards Dou Zhao. He only glanced at Dou Zhao. Shen Hao was as arrogant as a deity that had descended upon the mortal plane. From Dou Zhao's perspective, Shen Hao's silhouette was as tall as a mountain. It was as though he was a deity that was covered in endless divine light. This made Dou Zhao feel dissatisfied. This dazzling figure was shining more brilliantly than he was. Rumble. Dou Zhao raised his arms and sent out a punch. The punch of the fighting god seemed to cause even the space itself to collapse. A dull thud could be heard in the space. Shen Hao's gaze was unbelievably calm. It was as though he was unmoved when he saw Dou Zhao's overbearing punch. Shen Hao's figure that floated there remained uninhibited. The divine light in his deep gaze was frightening. The aura from his flawless divine wheel of the great path burst forth from his body. He opened his arms and slowly rose up. In that instant, a spatial storm swept up in that vast and endless space. Countless spatial divine lights swept out. The spatial storm raged frenziedly, emitting a high-pitched sound. Although it was a storm, there was no wind. There was only destructive power that tore apart everything. In a mere instant, Dou Zhao's lofty and domineering figure was swept into the countless divine lights. The spatial storm swallowed up the sky and buried him within itself. Within the storm, each beam of spatial divine light contained extremely potent power. When countless beams of divine light burst forth at the same time, its might was astonishing. Dou Zhao's excited expression suddenly changed. It wasn't because Shen Hao was powerful, but rather than this type of ability was somewhat of a counter to him. Rumble. His war-god-like silhouette adorned dazzling golden armor. The fighting god sent a punch crashing out. It immediately penetrated the space, piercing through the storm. The storm that engulfed him ravaged his body. At the same time, it also surged into his mind and attacked his will. Sharp cracking sounds could be heard. The armor on Dou Zhao's body was torn apart. The storm wanted to turn his entire person to dust. Dou Zhao's body penetrated the storm and continued to crash towards Shen Hao's figure. However, he did look somewhat pathetic. His imposing manner had been knocked down a few notches. Shen Hao took a step forward and pushed his arms forward. The endless spatial storm circled in front of him and consumed Dou Zhao's figure. Dou Zhao did not retreat. He would not retreat. He merely advanced. Bang, bang, bang. The terrifying sound of collisions kept sounding. Dou Zhao finally made it through the storm. Unfortunately, under the effects of the storm's frightening might, his body had also finally come to a halt. Streaks of blood appeared on his arms. His defense had been torn apart, and in the end he still could not reach Shen Hao. Shen Hao was proficient in using the way of space. He also had a flawless divine wheel of the great path like Do Zhao. It was very difficult for Do Zhao to have an advantage over him. This attack left Do Zhao somewhat dissatisfied. Shen Hao did not give Do Zhao the chance to take on him face-to-face at all. Shen Hao swept a glance at Do Zhao. His gaze then shifted and landed on Yi Futian. When Shen Hao met Yi Futian in the God's Relic and had heard that he was the inheritor of Sky River Great Elder, he still had not properly looked at Yi Futian. At that time, Shen Hao's attitude was arrogant. What was an inheritor of Sky River Great Elder compared to himself? In fact, Yi Futian could only be considered the grand disciple of Sky River Great Elder. However, now that Sky River Great Elder had slaughtered his way into Shen Clan alone and killed many cultivators of Shen Clan, Yi Futian had descended on Shen Clan with cultivators from various forces. With the forces at Shen Clan's gates, they threatened the existence of Shen Clan. Yi Futian's party even killed the Renowangs of Shen Clan. All this felt like a dream. This youth, who was now renowned in the 9 realms, also established Heavenly Mandate Academy and helped the people at his side forge flawless divine wheels. Most likely, after today, Yi Futian's fame would resound in the 9 realms and surpass that of their Shen Clan. Yi Futian might even become the most brilliant existence of this generation in one fell swoop. Be it Shen Hao himself, Nen Luoshan, or Jian Qingzhu, all of them had never caused such sensational events like Yi Futian had. Yi Futian was leading a large army to slaughter their way to Shen Clan. Shen Hao had to strike down Yi Futian today and defeat him here. Otherwise, Yi Futian would step over him and Shen Clan to become famous everywhere. Yi Futian also looked at Shen Hao. Of course, he knew that Shen Hao had not considered him a threat at all back then. It was not just Shen Hao. None of the other cultivators of Shen Clan had ever looked at him properly. Of course, Yi Futian did not need their attention. On the day that Yi Futian's master had been taken away by Shen Clan, he knew that one day, he would certainly come face to face with them. It was just that he had never imagined that that day would come so soon. All of you, step down, Shen Hao commanded. The other members of Shen Clan looked at him with strange looks on their faces, but they still obeyed Shen Hao's order and stepped down. In Shen Clan, Shen Hao's position was extremely high. It was especially so after he emerged from the God's Relic. You all have already killed many of my Shen Clan's Renowangs. Since you have come here today, I believe that you only wish to take your master away and do not wish to die here. For the remainder of this battle, the both of us will suffice, Shen Hao said as he looked at Yi Futian. Yi Futian knew that what Shen Hao had said was not wrong. It was impossible for Yi Futian to truly start a massacre. This time, they were here to take his master away. Currently, his group was not yet a powerful force. If they truly angered Shen Clan completely, both sides would end up perishing together. This was not the ending he wanted. Yi Futian extended his hand, and the others understood what he meant. They similarly backed down. Yu Sheng also stepped down. Do Zhao felt somewhat depressed. However, he still headed in another direction and left the battlefield. At this moment, in the sky above Shen Clan, there were only 2 people left standing across from each other on the battlefield. The top figure of Shen Clan's current generation, as well as the future leader of Shen Clan, Shen Hao. The grand disciple of Sky River Great Elder, who established Heavenly Mandate Academy, a genius figure who shook the 9 realms with his emergence, Yi Futian. This battle would be the pinnacle battle of their generation. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 17:10 Weaker than expected. Chapter 17:10 Weaker than expected. Among the Shen Clan, countless gazes landed on these 2 silhouettes. If it was said that Yi Futian leading a large force into Shen Clan was significant and could change the situation with the forces of the 9 realms, then Yi Futian and Shen Hao's battle could determine who would be the hero of the next generation. Yi Futian had already reached this stage. He had to win. It was the same for Shen Hao. If he lost, Shen Clan would be completely crushed. The two of them stood across from each other and had yet to attack. Around them, an unparalleled frightening storm of the great path swept up. Divine light shone down all across the sky. It was as though endless divine halos were being created. Shen Hao's divine eye opened on his glabella. It directly penetrated Yi Futian's eyes. Yi Futian also similarly released his eye sorcery. Both of them wanted to directly invade each other's consciousness. Faint illusions of deities could be seen. Right now, Shen Hao was insufferably arrogant. Yi Futian's eyes were similarly extraordinary. He had forged eyes of the divine wheel. Shen Hao saw overlapping spatial prisons wanting to rush into his mind and imprison his consciousness. How could Shen Hao possibly let Yi Futian do as he wished? Under his divine eye, a frightening spatial storm swept up. Both of them collided in midair. Coincidentally, both of them were using the spatial power of the Great Path. Yi Futian's eye sorcery divine wheel was extremely overbearing. It kept attacking Shen Hao. Shen Hao revealed a sinister look. An even more frightening aura radiated from his body. In an instant, the divine halos that covered the sky showered down. It was like a divine sign. Tianshan Divine Halo was also a natural-born ability of Shen clan. Rumor has it that it could suppress all powers of the Great Path. Only members of the direct bloodline of Shen clan possessed this ability. When the divine halos showered down, Yi Futian also sensed his way being suppressed. He felt a miraculous sensation. This power was similar to the halos of deities. From the looks of it, a great emperor-level existence might have appeared before in Shen clan's history. All around them, a spatial storm was also brewing. Countless divine light ravaged their surroundings and enveloped the space around Yi Futian's figure within it. Under the effects of the storm divine wheel in Shen Hao's body, this space was consumed by the spatial storm. The Guqin divine wheel in Yi Futian's body similarly burst forth. Astonishing rays of light shot out, and the sound of a Guqin was created involuntarily with the Great Path as its strings. A storm of sword qi enveloped the sky and interweaved with the spatial storm. Buzz! Countless divine lights came garroting their way towards Yi Futian. Under the effects of the spatial storm, each beam of divine light contained the power of Tianshan Cleave. They slashed towards the space where Yi Futian was at, wanting to slice his body to pieces. However, around Yi Futian's body, a countering flow of swordsmanship appeared. The storm of sword qi cleaved everything and resisted the power of the spatial storm. An extremely high-pitched sound could be heard. Both of their figures remained motionless, both standing on their spots. It was just the confrontation of powers of the Great Path, but it was already extremely fierce and frightening. If either one of them were weaker than the other, they would most likely be vaporized under the will of the Great Path. The space where they were was already swallowed up by the raging storm of the Great Path. Both of them were within the endless destructive storm and appeared somewhat blurry. At this moment, the crowd was blinded by a bright light. Countless divine halos shone down on Shen Hao. It was like a pair of God's wings had appeared on his body. Illusions of deities appeared, as though they had been summoned from ancient times. Then, Shen Hao finally moved. He took a step forward. The next moment, his figure disappeared without a trace into the spatial storm. Yi Futian watched as Shen Hao's silhouette vanished. His expression remained the same. He immediately extended his arm and pointed a finger forwards. In that instant, a beam of brilliant divine light appeared where Yi Futian's finger pointed to. This beam of light was extremely sharp until it sliced the very fabric of space apart. A divine sword formed at the tip of his finger and became a divine sword that clashed with Shen Hao's attack. It caused a high-pitched sound to explode in the space. The light of the divine sword ripped apart the space as it kept advancing. However, that destructive power of Shen Hao also disappeared in an instant along with his body. Sizzle! Behind Yi Futian, another beam of extremely dazzling light radiated. This time, Yi Futian did not dodge it. Brilliant golden divine light instantly burst forth from his body and flooded the sky. A towering golden divine elephant appeared, and the divine elephant divine wheel in his body burst forth. A third divine wheel. The cultivators of Shen clan observing the battle were astonished. all of his divine wheels were flawless. Even Shen Hao had only forged 2 flawless divine wheels. But the sound of a terrifying explosion reverberated in the space. The golden divine elephant trampled the sky. Divine halos became sharp blades that slashed at the body of the golden divine elephant, cleaving it apart. One could imagine how powerful the attack power of the blades was. However, Futian turned around and immediately sent out a punch. 10,000 elephants stampeded across the sky. Divine elephants ripped apart the space, and the collapsing great path shattered everything. Shen Hao's silhouette wanted to become ethereal once again. This time, the spatial storm in front of him was directly blown apart, causing his silhouette to be forced to appear as he was sent flying from the shockwave. Divine Elephant Void-Splitting Fist contained the power to split apart space itself and collapse the Great Path. It could shatter space and counter Shen Hao's powers. Futian's gaze was locked on Shen Hao. He said, "Is that all that the top figure of this generation of Shen clan has to show?" Shen Hao's gaze was as sharp as daggers. He extended both of his arms, and tens of thousands of divine halos descended at the same time. In his body, another divine wheel burst forth. In the sky above, endless golden illusions of spatial divine spears appeared. The blood vessels in Shen Hao's body churned and roared. His divine blood was boiling. Right now, Shen Hao was bathed in endless divine halos and had become a true deity. The divine halos directly merged with his body. At the same time, a divine spear appeared from inside his body. It appeared amongst the divine halos that covered the sky. Shen Hao extended his hand and wielded the spear divine wheel in his hand. He pointed it towards Futian. The divine halos showered down on where the divine spear was pointed to. Illusions of spears covered the sky and rained down on Futian. But Shen Hao's figure moved again. This time, he charged straight towards Futian like a deity descending upon the mortal plane. His divine spear stabbed out and was followed by the divine halos in the heavens above as well as the astonishing spatial storm. His attack immediately suppressed the great path in this part of the sky completely. It was as though only this spear existed within this space. Futian discovered that Shen Hao's temperament had changed. Futian stepped into the air. Divine elephants also followed suit, their trumpeting shaking the world around them. He sent the divine elephant void-splitting fist crashing out, shattering the spatial storm. Shen Hao's spear descended and penetrated the power of Futian's fist. The spear landed directly on the body of the gigantic divine elephant. Cut! A crisp crack sounded. Cracks appeared on the illusion of the elephant. The spear attempted to break the divine elephant into pieces. But Futian's body was pushed back due to the shockwave. Shen Hao stood high above in the sky. His divine spear was bathed in endless divine halos. The halos enveloped the sky, suppressing all the will of the Great Path. The Great Path in this territory was all under the command of Shen Hao. With divine halos surrounding him, Shen Hao attacked once again. Futian remained calm. Divine sound was played, and illusory figures of the deities appeared one by one in the space. This time, they were not summoned by Shen Hao, but Futian. It was the magnum opus of Golden Divine Nation, the sigh of the Divine God. The Divine Elephant Divine Wheel was activated. Futian strode upwards and ascended into the clouds. A terrifying rumbling sound could be heard. 10,000 elephants rushed across the space and covered up half of the sky. Futian sensed that his divine wheel could definitely suppress Shen Hao, but the latter had activated the natural-born ability of Shen clan to make up for the difference in power between them. However, even if they were competing in terms of attack power, Futian was not afraid of Shen Hao. When faced with Shen Hao's attack, Futian sent out a punch. 10,000 divine elephants broke loose at the same time. The heavens and earth shook. It was as though the great path had collapsed. The same technique would unleash different powers depending on the strength of the users. Right now, the top figures of divine elephants had to admit that even they could not master the magnum opus of their clan as well as Futian had. Regardless of its law power or its strength, Futian had the absolute advantage. Rumble! A shockingly loud bang sounded. Shen Hao's body was sent flying into the air. Countless divine elephants were still stomping towards him, attempting to bury him beneath them. Shen Hao's facial expression was ugly. Did he still lose even after he had used his natural-born ability? He stared at Yi Futian, who was beneath him. An even more terrifying aura burst forth from within him. An ancient aura seemed to be emanating from Shen Hao's body. It was the power of the divine item. Spatial doors appeared in the space and engulfed the stampeding divine elephants. The elephants disappeared behind the doors. Yi Futian frowned as he looked at Shen Hao. Was this the divine item Shen Hao got from the god's relic? Back when they were at the god's relic, all of them who stood beneath the heavenly palace had each gotten a divine item. Yi Futian had given his to Yaya. You have lost, Lord Taishin said coldly. His voice was being transmitted through the space. Lord Taishin, it's okay. Yi Futian responded, even with the divine item, he is no match for me. When Shen Hao heard Yi Futian's words, his face turned pale green from anger. Today's battle was a humiliation for him. All his techniques were useless on Yi Futian. Right now, he even needed to use the divine item he got from the god's relic to aid him in battle. This item has already been refined by me. It is already a part of me, Shen Hao said. The spatial storm divine wheel burst forth. This time, a spatial door that consumed everything seemed to appear within the spatial storm. It swallowed up the space that Yi Futian was in. Yi Futian sensed the space that he was in change. It had transformed into an enclosed spatial world. Shen Hao stood in the sky as he looked down at Yi Futian. The former was still bathed in divine halos. He said, "In here, I am the master of the great path." Yi Futian checked his surroundings and noticed that he was in a similar situation when a normal divine will Renhuang was faced with a flawless divine will Renhuang. He experienced absolute suppression in terms of control over the great path. But Shen Hao's figure dove downwards. The divine spear pierced through the sky and crashed straight towards Yi Futian. This time, Yi Futian was sent flying from the shockwave of the divine spear. It was as though his opponent suppressed his power of the great path. Are these all your trump cards? Yi Futian asked as he raised his head and looked toward Shen Hao. Shen Hao scowled. From the look in Yi Futian's eyes, it was as if Yi Futian believed that nobody on earth could beat him. It was as though he was still unconcerned about his current situation. Such a look made Shen Hao very unhappy. If Shen Hao wasn't already at his limit, why would he be relying on a divine item to fight? This naturally was his trump card. The number one proud son of heaven of Shen clan is much weaker than I expected, Yi Futian said softly. I thought I would at least be pressured a little. When Shen Hao heard Yi Futian's words, his expression turned ashen. Did Yi Futian mean to say that against him, Yi Futian did not feel pressured at all? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 17:11 Let Them Go. Chapter 17:11 Let Them Go. Countless people were watching the battlefield at the Shen clan. The two figures there seemed to have disappeared as they were covered by the great path of space. Shen Hao and Yi Futian were gone. He used an item to engage the domain of the Wei. Lord Taishin and the others could naturally see that Shen Hao had used an incredibly powerful divine item. But Yi Futian had asked him not to intervene. Even so, Lord Taishin believed Yi Futian could deal with him. The fierce will of the great path of space raged as endless divine light descended from the sky and entered into everything. Within, Shen Hao's body shone with brilliant radiance as he stared at Yi Futian below him. Yi Futian was arrogant beyond words. He was even weaker than he had imagined. This is my world, he said to Yi Futian coldly. Your world? Yi Futian looked back at him, a hint of disdain in his eyes. We'll see. As he said this, the area changed yet again. The sun and the moon appeared in the sky, surrounded by stars. They seemed to be in another world. Divine flames descended from the sun, while the lonely moon seemed filled with cold will. Each of the stars that surrounded them contained majestic power. It was as if everything was acting on its own volition. The fourth divine wheel, thought Shen Hao, his heart trembling fiercely. Yi Futian was using his fourth divine wheel. And this wheel stood alone in the world in that it could open up a world of its own, like a miniature realm. He felt his power come under pressure. But how was this possible? He could only do this by using the divine item he had taken in the god's relic. Could it be that Yi Futian was just like him? "This is my world," said Yi Futian coldly. Thousands of stars swirled around Shen Hao, moving faster and faster. There was a shrieking sound up in the sky as the whole area was covered in a suffocating force. Boom! The stars fell toward Shen Hao, each one seeming incomparably huge. Divine radiance bloomed from him, and beams of spatial light swept out, transforming into a terrible storm that swallowed up all the stars. But all the stars fell at once, pressing down on the spatial storm, shattering it and continuing on towards Shen Hao. Shen Hao lashed out with his spear, and endless afterimages bloomed from it. They slammed into each of the oncoming stars. This showed just how much attacking power he had. But at that moment, there was a roar in the sky, and Shen Hao felt immense pressure. It was as if the air itself was about to collapse. He looked up and saw a godlike figure descending, possessed by the divine elephants, and holding a long staff. He was coming towards him. The staff was formed by thousands of elephants combined. A sky full of stars swirled around it. It could both defend against and slay gods. Shen Hao felt that his radiance had been suppressed. The long staff swept out, smashing into his spear, which cracked. Boom! There was a low roar, and Shen Hao was sent flying backward. His great path collapsed as he was swept away by the staff. Yi Futian continued forward, his eyes incredibly cold. The people outside their little world were still staring at that area. They could faintly hear terrible, fierce roars. Bang! There was a breaking sound, and they saw a figure swept away, flying powerlessly off into the distance and leaving a trail of blood behind him in the air. Shen Hao! The cultivators of the Shun clan looked gloomy. The one who had been swept away was Shen Hao, the foremost member of their clan in his generation, who had a perfect divine wheel, had been directly swept away. This was extremely embarrassing. His tattered clothes were stained with blood. His aura was growing weak. He had nowhere near the energetic will he had before. The people from the heavenly mandate realm did not get too strong a sensation from this, as if they had always known it would be like this. Everything that Yi Futian had done had given them absolute confidence in him. Even when a proud son of heaven, like Shen Hao, was standing before him, they still believed that Yi Futian could win. When the three top forces, the Shao clan, the Yuanyang clan, and the Dou tribe, beheld this scene, their hearts trembled. They knew what this battle meant. Shen Hao had fallen. From now on, the white-haired youth standing in the sky above the Shun clan would become the most glorious figure of the age, second to none. Although he had never fought with Jian Qingzhu, Nen Luoshan, or a few others, everything he had done today could not be done by anyone else of his generation. There was no one who could repeat his deeds. The great figures of the heavenly mandate realm were also a bit disturbed. The will of heaven had changed. It had not only changed, but it was now influencing the situation in the 9 realms. Yi Futian was a man who could change the history of the heavenly mandate. It was just as the mountain master of 10,000 divine mountain. In the past, Gu Tianxing had not been an epic-making man. But Yi Futian was this kind of person. That was why he had been willing to intervene on his behalf. Yi Futian retracted his aura and took several steps forward. Yu Sheng and the others followed behind. They all stood in the air above the Shun clan, with countless cultivators of the Shun clan looking up at them. They strode to the highest part of the Shun clan, where the divine hall was. No one stopped them. Lower-level Renhuangs could not stop them. The cultivators of the Shun clan brought Shen Hao down. He watched Yi Futian pass over them, then spat up another mouthful of blood. He had clearly lost this battle. Yi Futian had crushed him, the Shun clan, and their reputation. Yi Futian strode to the front of the divine hall. A powerful figure of the Shun clan was standing there, watching him closely. At that moment, they had one move that could easily kill him. It would completely destroy this man with the perfect divine wheel. But if they did this, it would be meaningless. If they killed Yi Futian and the others, they would no longer threaten the Shen clan's future. This was because the Shen clan would disappear. But both sides understood that Yi Futian coming here still required great amounts of courage and daring. He was gambling his life against the survival of the Shen clan. "Teacher, brothers," said Yi Futian, looking at Qi Shengang, Yan Yuan, and Nan Zhai. Everything that had happened all those years ago played before his eyes. In the Crimson Dragon realm, his teacher had ignored his own safety. He had always said, "As the heavens movement is ever so vigorous, so must a wise man ceaselessly strive." Big Brother had accompanied him for a long way, facing the royal family of the Dali dynasty, finally sending him away from them. "Master, we have come to bring you back." Dou Zhao did not think this was the least bit strange, and he smiled as he spoke. They turned their gaze to the cultivators of the Shen clan behind Qi Shengang. "Let them go," they said, and stepped back in compliance with their agreement to let Yi Futian take Qi Shengang. "There is one more," said Yi Futian, looking at the cultivators of the Shen clan. Feishue was not there. He knew that Feishue was the Shen clan's target. She had the divine item that they wanted within her. "You have already got what you came for. We only promised to release 3 people," said the elder of the Shen clan. Those 3 were of no further use to them. Feishue had the divine item within her, so they could not let her go. "I will take them all," said Yi Futian coldly. The elder of the Shen clan swept his cold gaze over Yi Futian and said, "Fine, once we have taken our divine item out of her, you can have her." "It is not yours, it is my teacher's," said Qi Shengang coldly. "Don't forget who your sister is," the elder said, glancing at him. "I am going to take her away from here intact," said Yi Futian. The elder of the Shen clan did not look at Yi Futian but at Lord Taixian and the others. "You have all come here to the Shen clan together today, and we have been most accommodating. But if you give an inch," said the elder, looking to the sky. "It's war then." Yi Futian was not the only bold one. Shen Ji had attacked the Heavenly Mandate Academy, so it was only natural that they would retaliate. But they had gambled that the Shen clan would not go to war over this. Were the great powers of the Heavenly Mandate realm prepared for that? All but the greatest figures of the great powers and Shen clan would probably die as soon as the war started. Who could bear that? A suffocating pressure descended upon the Shen clan. Lord Taixian and the 3 top figures' aura covered the area. For a time, the silence was frightening. The only thing that anyone could feel was tension. Boom! At that moment, a blood-red storm appeared in the air above the city of the gods. The elder of the Shen clan looked over there and saw the storm growing stronger and stronger. A terrible vortex appeared within the storm. It was as if someone had opened up the ancient road of space. Lord Taixian, Yi Futian, and the others all looked over there as well. The aura was terrifying, and the storm grew fiercer and fiercer, covering an endless area as it spread out towards the Shen clan. Red light fell from the sky like streaks of blood. "Everyone, go back down," said the elder coldly. Suddenly, all the cultivators of the Shen clan descended from the air. At that moment, he could clearly see the deep fear in their eyes. Yi Futian suddenly guessed who it was. Before they had come, the Sky River Great Elder had attacked the Shen clan by himself, killing many cultivators. Moreover, he had completely wiped the imperial palace away from the Tianhe realm. He did not know what his teacher had experienced to become so powerful. His aura was completely different from before. Of course, he did not blame his teacher for anything he had done. It was a monstrous blood feud. They could not live under the same sky as each other. It was hard to imagine that the normally peaceful Sky River Great Elder had so much strength within him and had been patient for so long. The vortex that seemed to have opened up from the ancient road of space within the storm spread out, and everyone could faintly see a dark figure within, like a god of blood. The Shen clan elder's gaze pierced through the storm. The Sky River Great Elder had been wounded in their battle. If there had not been 4 great enemies here, he would have directly gone into the storm to seek him out. But now he did not dare. "Let them go." A voice pierced through the blood-red storm and came from the distance. A gloomy look came over the faces of the cultivators of the Shen clan. If there was someone who would dare to go to war no matter the consequences, That person was without a doubt the Sky River Great Elder. He had become a demon. Chapter 1712 The Shun Clan Compromises. Chapter 1712 The Shun Clan Compromises. The sky turned into a blood-red storm. Within this powerful vortex, destructive red light fell from the sky, descending upon the Shun clan. At that moment, all the cultivators of the Shun clan looked up and stared into the sky. It was oppressive. So oppressive. The Sky River Great Elder had entered the situation, and things had changed. A madman had been added to the equation. He had slaughtered the cultivators of the Shun clan when he had attacked them all by himself. There was nothing that he would not do. The Shun clan needed to consider the possibility that if they did not let the people go, the Sky River Great Elder would attack them. If he did, would the other 4 top figures take part or just sit and watch? If they got involved, it would be a huge battle. If this battle broke out, the Shun clan would be at a massive disadvantage. What would happen then? No one knew. They could only imagine. The elder of the Shun clan was silent for a time, as were all of the top figures. Ever since the Divine Prefecture had been conquered, the Shun clan had not experienced a situation like this. They were a force that stood at the top of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Now a single man had attacked them, they were being interrogated, and they were being forced to release their prisoners. The blood-red storm descended from the sky towards the Shun clan. Shen Ji stepped out, standing beneath the storm. Endless spatial light bloomed from him, pressing against the oncoming storm. But on the other side of the storm, an overpowering demonic image stepped forth, seeming like it could reach them at any time. Lord Taishin might have scruples, the Shao clan, the Yuanyang clan, and the Dou tribe might have scruples, but the Sky River Great Elder had none. He had experienced terrible war in the past. Perhaps he wanted to bring another such war to life? Would he even care? When he had named Yi Futian his heir, he seemed to have used that to lull the Shun clan into a false sense of security. They thought he had found a heir so that he could give his knowledge to him, but that he himself had accepted the cruelty of fate. But what was the reality? Did he care if Yi Futian lived or died? Did he care if Qi Xiangeng lived or died? Bring them out. A voice broke the silence. It was the elder of the Shun clan. Suddenly, several cultivators appeared from within the sacred hall, bringing a figure with them. It was a woman wearing blue robes. She looked very frail, and her hair was disheveled, but a clear light shone in her eyes. She looked at Yi Futian and smiled brightly. But as she smiled, tears ran down her face. She was finally able to see his face. It turned out it was just like she had imagined it would be. Yi Futian looked at Fei Xue, his gaze freezing on her. Fei Xue, yes, she said, nodding. She already knew what he was going to ask. I have cultivated to a higher level, so I can see again. In the past, Yi Futian had fixed the problems within her body. Afterward, she had melded the divine item into herself, cultivating at an astonishing speed. The divine item had naturally contained the power of the Great Path, and now she was already a Nirvana-level saint. Her eyes had been gravely wounded, but once she reached the Nirvana level, her dead eyes were once again filled with light. She had always wondered when she would see Yi Futian again. She had thought it would never happen. She had never thought that, at the most hopeless moment, when the Shun clan was about to act against her, he would arrive. You're just like I imagined. So beautiful, said Yi Futian with a bright smile. He had faced many unknown threats at the Shun clan. Now, the two of them were standing there, smiling at each other. This smile seemed to come from the depths of Fei Xue's heart. Although she had gone through so many hardships, life was so beautiful. Even in the depths of despair, there was light. What a wonderful feeling. You can get out of here, said the Shun clan elder coldly. No one could guess what he was feeling now. As one of the top figures in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, he had still been forced into this position. He had no choice but to hand her over. There is one more person, came a cold voice from the sky. The elder of the Shun clan looked up into the sky, his eyes going extremely cold. He naturally knew whom the Sky River Great Elder was talking about. Yi Futian looked there as well. He had not thought of it before, but the Sky River Great Elder and him were different. He naturally wanted to save his wife. The heroic and powerful daughter of the Shin clan was Yi Futian's master's wife. Was she still in the Shin clan? Boom! Deep within the Shin clan, there was a dull yet fierce roar. Yi Futian and the others looked over there. Terrible divine light was blooming from there. It was as if someone was attacking. An attack on the innermost part of the Shin clan. At that moment, everyone guessed what was happening. You have everything you want, and you still won't go? The elder of the Shin clan swept his gaze over Yi Futian and Lord Taishin. The one who was imprisoned within the Shin clan was his daughter. She was a member of the Shin clan. There is one more person, said Lord Taishin. Obviously, he had decided to aid the Sky River Great Elder. If they left now, the Sky River Great Elder would not be able to save his wife on his own. This is a family affair. The elder of the Shin clan looked coldly at Lord Taishin. Do the three of you want to get involved? Let her go, said Yi Futian, looking at the elder of the Shin clan. The one who was imprisoned was the Sky River Great Elder's wife, his master's mistress, and Xuefei's grandmother. Since things had already reached this point, where they had already offended the Shin clan as much as possible, he did not care if they went a bit further. A dark look came over the elder of the Shin clan's face. He stared at Yi Futian, then said coldly, "You truly do not fear death." "When I came here, I had already put life and death out of my mind," said Yi Futian. The elder of the Shin clan could destroy him just by lifting his hand, but he still stood there in front of him. Did he dare destroy him? He didn't. He would let her go. When Shinji came to the Heavenly Mandate Academy, I never would have thought they would drag in all the other powers. Since the Shin clan dared to do it, they can only accept what is happening now, said the elder of the Do tribe, his voice ringing throughout the city. How could Shinji have known that his assault on the academy would have stirred up such great waves, making the Shin clan face this desperate situation? If they had known, they would not have made enemies of the Heavenly Mandate Academy so carelessly. But who could have imagined this? Let her go, said the elder of the Shin clan, his voice ringing out loudly. At that moment, the people of the Shin clan were speechless. Were they finally compromising? Many of the top figures of the Shin clan left, walking towards the great matrix. Soon, bright light pierced everyone's eyes. In the distance, a powerful aura came towards them. A figure strode through the sky. In a flash, she reached them. Even for many of the members, this was their first time seeing her. After all, those events had happened many years ago. Some of the saint level and below people had not even been born yet. They just knew that the head of the clan had a daughter and that she was imprisoned. Yi Futian looked at the figure. Her white hair danced in the wind, looking disheveled, some of it even falling down over her face. She was very thin, as she had been imprisoned for so long. But her eyes still burned with fearsome brilliance. The wind blew her hair, revealing a weathered face. But it was clear that behind that, she was very beautiful. She had once been the treasure of the Shin clan. She was very famous in the Central Emperor realm, and many famous people had pursued her. "Mistress," said Qi Shengang. Tears appeared in the corners of his eyes. Men do not cry easily, especially one as powerful as him. But when he saw her, he felt weak in the depths of his heart. He felt very guilty towards his master and mistress. If it had not been for him, those things would not have happened. Nongyue would have found someone more talented, and the master and mistress would have maintained their place at the top of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. The once brilliant mistress was now so haggard. "You were not so weak in the past," said the woman, casting her gaze over Qi Shengang, her voice cold. There was very little emotion in her deep eyes. Qi Shengang wiped away his tears. He knew how powerful the mistress was. Otherwise, she would not have dared to resist her own clan and go to war with them. But at this moment, his emotions ran so deep. The woman looked at the elder of the Shin clan, her father. Then she looked up into the storm, seeming to see right through it to the figure on the other side. But at that moment, the storm gradually disappeared. The woman stepped into it, but it closed itself off. She froze, watching it disappear into the sky. Why couldn't she see him? "Where is he?" the woman asked Lord Taishin. Naturally, she knew him. Lord Taishin shook his head and said, Come back with me to the heavenly mandate realm first. I am going to find him. The woman stepped into the air to leave. Grandmother! A soft voice rang out, making the woman stop. She slowly turned and looked down. Her gaze fell upon Feishue. Her movements seemed to have become incredibly slow as she walked towards Feishue. She placed a trembling hand on her face. You are Feishue, said the woman, staring at her. At that moment, it seemed like she was seeing her own daughter. She looked just like her. Yes, said Feishue with a bright smile. She looked at the face hidden behind white hair, and tears fell from her eyes. This strong woman had scolded Qi Xiangang and faced her own father, the elder of the Shen clan, without any problem. But seeing her, she began to cry. Child. The woman softly hugged Feishue. Feishue leaned up against her quietly. At that moment, she seemed to feel her mother's warmth. Her mother must have been just like her grandmother. Futian was very moved by this scene. Mistress, let's go back to the heavenly mandate realm. We will find the master, said Qi Xiangang, walking up to them. The woman nodded softly. This time she did not refuse. She took Feishue's hand and said, Let's go. Futian smiled. This was excellent. Let's go back, said Lord Taishan. Suddenly, the great army began to leave. When they left, so did the three great figures within the city of the gods. Within the Shen clan, a powerful aura still pressed down on them. It was as silent as the grave. The elder of the Shen clan watched the disappearing figures. His daughter had not said a single word to him as she left. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1713 Postpone. Chapter 1713 Postpone. The battle at the Shen clan shook the 9 realms. The central imperial realms seethed at the news. No one could have imagined that the incomparably powerful Shen clan would be invaded twice in just a few short days. After beating back the Sky River Great Elder, Futian had led an army of cultivators to their city. And this time, the great army of the Heavenly Mandate Academy contained Lord Taishan, the Shao clan, the Yuanyang clan, and the Dou tribe. When added to the Sky River Great Elder, these 4 giants had descended upon the Shen clan, saving the people they had come to save and killing many Renawangs. Although they could not damage the base of the Shen clan, this still had great implications. How much of an effect would it have on the rest of the world for the Shen clan, one of the top forces in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, to be invaded? And in that battle, many cultivators with perfect divine wheels had emerged. These were people who would rewrite the history of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Futian had defeated Shen Hao in single combat. There were too many things to talk about in that battle, and the news spread at a frightening speed. Even the greatest forces of the Central Imperial Realm trembled when they heard the news. Many of them even gathered their top figures to discuss the matter. This would probably affect the war for the future of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. They could not ignore it. However, none of that had anything to do with Futian. Once they had freed the captives, they returned to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. When they arrived, the news had naturally not reached the academy yet. The people of Heavenly Mandate City thought it was a bit strange. The army of the academy had gone out and then returned. Where had they gone? Now that they were back, it probably meant that a battle had broken out someplace. Many people guessed that. However, none of them were bold enough to think that the battle had taken place at the Shen clan in the Central Emperor realm. They did not dare imagine it. After all, the Shen clan was a true top power. Shen Ji had come alone and shaken the entire Heavenly Mandate Academy. Even with Lord Taishan there, the Heavenly Mandate Academy was nowhere near powerful enough to face him. But if they had not gone to the Shen clan, then where? Many cultivators had gathered together in a large restaurant in Heavenly Mandate City. One of them said, "The Heavenly Mandate Academy's army is back. I wonder who they fought. They did not suffer great losses. It's like they didn't run into too much trouble." "Is the Heavenly Mandate Academy still accepting disciples?" asked a young man. "Yes," nodded the man beside him. Are you planning to go and try to join? Wait a little bit. Given the current situation, it's not safe to enter the academy, said a beautiful, white-robed woman sitting at their table. There was something about her that made her look very powerful. That's right. Otherwise, there would have been no trouble for you to join them, and you would already be a core disciple, said the young man with a smile. Right now, not many people are joining the academy. Although most of the places were taken up by people who joined the academy on the first day, since then, there has been little competitions. It is not difficult to become a core disciple now, chuckled the man beside them. Saint Lan is a woman of great influence in the heavenly mandate city. I say that the academy should invite her personally to show their sincerity. Everyone around them smiled, but these were words of high praise. Although the Heavenly Mandate Academy had run into trouble and no one was joining them now, they were still a place for teaching the way. If someone was not incredibly talented, there was basically no way that the academy would personally invite them to come and train. At that moment, a group of figures entered the restaurant, looking around at the crowd. There is news from the academy, said one of the ones who had come. They are temporarily not accepting disciples. The selection process is postponed for a month. As he said this, a look of surprise came over everyone's face. What did this mean? The Heavenly Mandate Academy had already said that they would be accepting disciples for 3 months. Now they had announced that they were stopping for a month. Could it be that they were facing a great threat? Everyone in the restaurant was whispering to each other, guessing what had happened and why the academy had announced this. This restaurant epitomized what was going on all over Heavenly Mandate City. Everyone was confused and discussing this matter. What had happened? Was the Heavenly Mandate Academy really in such dire straits? But at that moment, some disciples who had already been accepted into the academy rushed back to their families with great excitement. Not long before, Futian and the others had returned, and the people at the academy had received some shocking news. Many of the disciples of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were from families in Heavenly Mandate City. They rushed to their families to tell them the news, for no other reason than that they were so shocked by it. Soon, the news had spread throughout the city. Futian and Lord Taishan had led an army, allied with 3 other great figures, and descended upon the Shun clan, taking back Futian's master and the Sky River Great Elder's wife. This simple news had implications that were simply astonishing. In the restaurant, the host personally came forward and looked at the people discussing this, then took a deep breath and said, "I have news for everyone." The army of the Heavenly Mandate Academy went to the Shun clan and rescued some people there, including Futian's master and the Sky River Great Elder's wife. Boom! This voice seemed to resonate in everyone's minds. Many of them stood up, their hearts trembling fiercely. They looked at the host and said, "Is this true?" "How could the Heavenly Mandate Academy attack the Shun clan?" someone asked. "It was simply impossible." "It's completely true." The news came from the academy itself, from the disciples. They saw Futian bring those people back with their own eyes. It is said that in addition to the academy, the elders of the Shao clan, the Yuanyang clan, and the Dou tribe of the Ziwei realm went as well, continued the host. His heart was beating wildly at that moment as well. Even saint-level cultivators could not stop their hearts from trembling. This information was absolutely shocking. Moreover, Futian fought Shin Hao in this battle, and few could have guessed the outcome. In addition to that, it is said that the Heavenly Mandate realm has many cultivators with perfect divine wheels, he continued. Every new piece of information was like a lightning bolt, shocking everyone that heard it. Now they thought about why the Heavenly Mandate Academy was postponing its acceptance of new disciples. When news of this battle got out, it was easy to imagine that the academy would become far more prestigious. And for a time, people from not just the Heavenly Mandate realm, but all of the 9 realms, would gather there. At that point, how much competition would people who wanted to enter the academy face? Becoming a core disciple? Becoming an ordinary disciple would be hard enough. The woman known as Saint Lan's face went white. She looked at the young man who had praised her before. A core disciple? The academy would personally invite her? I'm going back to cultivate. She rose and walked out of the restaurant. As she rose into the air, the wind buffeted her, making her robes flutter. Her thoughts were in disarray. She seemed to have missed something, and it was not only her. On that day, countless people in Heavenly Mandate City had the same thought. They seemed to have missed their chance. The disciples who had already entered the academy would very likely surpass them. Futian and the others naturally did not care about what people on the outside thought. To postpone for a month was Lord Taishuan's decision. Since he was now the headmaster of the academy, he naturally had the right to decide this. Moreover, Futian was very happy that he had done this. This meant that Lord Taishuan was truly accepted his role. In addition, he was taking actions in his capacity as headmaster. As for the reason Lord Taishuan had made that decision, it was extremely simple. After the battle, anyone could tell that the academy would grow extremely prestigious. In that case, why not summon the most excellent disciples there to cultivate? The people of Heavenly Mandate City and the Heavenly Mandate Realm had already had a chance to enter the academy first, but they had not dared to due to the danger. Thus, they would now have to compete with the cultivators of all the 9 realms. On the Great Path, there were no realms. The Heavenly Mandate Academy taught the people of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, but they did not only accept disciples from there. Within the academy, everyone had settled in. Only Futian, Xing, Qi Xiangang, and some others were left outside. It was only now that Shen Luoxue was able to figure out the relationships between these people and how this affair had begun and ended. Her eyes fell upon Futian, then on Qi Xiangang. "You yourself are not that great, but you have a good disciple," she said. Qi Xiangang smiled, not the least bit angry at her comment. This was the first time Futian had seen this side of his master. But the one he was talking to was his master's mistress, so, of course, she could take him to task. "Do you know how the Sky River Great Elder is?" Shen Luoxue asked Futian. "After he left, he told me that the deed of thorough comprehension could help you cultivate backward. If it can, then one must use one's own body to guide it and use heaven and earth as the forge," said Futian. "My master changed when he broke through to the next level. He probably paid a heavy price." Shen Luoxue was silent for a moment, then said, "He had a divine item that he got at the same time as the one that was within Feishue. But it was much too powerful, so he never brought it out." Futian thought back to the scene when the Sky River Great Elder had appeared at the Shen clan. It had been horrifying. "Don't worry too much. He will learn to control it," said Futian. "You should stay here and get some rest." Shen Luoxue was silent for a while. "Grandfather will be back sooner or later," said Feishue softly. "You should stay here so that I can take care of you." Shen Luoxue looked at her, then nodded softly. "I will teach you how to cultivate." On saying this, she turned to the others and said, "You may all leave." "All right," said Futian, nodding. The Sky River Great Elder's wife must have been just as powerful as her husband in the past. Although she had been imprisoned for many years, she had probably not stopped cultivating. "Shuifei, take care of your grandmother while she rests," said Qi Xiangang. Then they all left. When they exited, Do Zhao called out to Qi Xiangang, "Master! Teacher!" The others all called out. Qi Xiangang smiled bitterly, then looked at Futian beside him. "Teacher, I will teach them the deed of thorough comprehension for you. You can set your mind at ease about that," said Futian with a smile. Now, this was all in the past. He looked off into the distance. Due to the influence of that battle, no one would dare take the Heavenly Mandate Academy lightly again. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.